This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Paul Vidas, our honored Patreon backer and SwitchCat. Hi everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch celebrant. And we have a festive episode for you today, even more than so than, I guess, last week's, where we actually had the Christmas special.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the holiday season, so we're going to be festive for quite a bit of time.
Well, this is our last episode before actual Christmas, and so I hope everybody has their shopping list done. Have you finished all your shopping for the season?
Yeah, mostly. And
mostly?
I mean, there's a couple that, you know, last minute stuff, but usually whenever I hang out with friends, we don't necessarily worry about gifts. Most of the gifts are going to my family, essentially.
I gotcha.
Yeah, but, you know, if you're not celebrating Christmas and, you know, you're celebrating other holidays, happy holidays to you as well.
I was hoping, Joey is on the cusp, our mutual friend there, of buying a Switch, mostly because Pokemon Go, you know, Let's Go has really, and he does, you know, the Pokemon Go podcast, so he's like been really like on the fence about buying it, and I think like Smash might be pushing him over the edge, and I only hope he does because it makes it easier to buy people presents when, like, you know, people who just got something that they need like accessories for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is a really, really good way to figure out what to give someone. Because if they're a new Switch owner, there's a plethora of things that they might not think of buying that you can buy them.
Also, what made things easy to shop for a couple of friends was, you know, a lot of my friends are in my Magic the Gathering Commander circle there.
Right.
And just to save, like, shipping, a lot of them are like, hey, Casey, when are you ordering some cards? Here's some things on my list. I'm building like this zombie deck, right? And that's like, oh yeah, sure. Oh, so these are the cards you're buying for that deck. And I already know what they own, right? I know. So like, you know what? They're probably shying away from this expensive like $5 or $6 card that's really good for that deck, but I'll just throw it in their shopping cart while I order. Just as like, you know, so I know they want cards for this deck. And I know they don't I know what cards they're missing that would be really good for it. So since I'm ordering it for them to save on shipping, I can just throw in a few little extra things. Like, here, Merry Christmas. Here's a anointed procession.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I do that a lot when it comes to playing with my gaming crew. Whenever it comes to gaming gifts or giving gifts to gamers, it can be a bit easier. For example, like I've given gifts through League of Legends Riot Points for Christmas. I've given skins. I've given specific cards that people need to fill out their decks in the card games we play. You know, it's when it comes to finding a nerd and having nerd friends are really fun and really easy to give gifts to, I think.
Which makes things so much harder since my wife's not that kind of a nerd, so it's hard to find that kind
She's
of
like
stuff.
a classic nerd.
Yeah, she's more of like a, you know, like a smartsy science nerd, you know, like
she's
that
not
kind.
Like a geek, essentially.
Right, exactly.
Geeks are so easy to buy for.
That's the thing. See, here's the thing, though. She always says I'm hard. She doesn't know what to buy me. But I'm like, it's so easy to know what to buy me. Like, there's like a million things. But I think a lot of people, especially like close people, like close friends and family, or at least, they don't want to buy me gaming stuff because I feel like they think I have so much of it. Like, my father used to be always like very reluctant, like, you got so much of that stuff. You don't need more.
You don't need any more. Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Yeah. So they would like go out of their way trying to find out what to get me outside of that wheelhouse, and like I feel guilty about it because like I feel like, you know, I don't want to make your lives harder. Like, just go simple. There's no reason to avoid what I already, you know, making your lives easier to shop for.
Yeah, it's very clear that we like this type of thing. Just go ahead and go for it. You don't need to avoid it just because it's so part of who you are visibly.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like open the present and say that was an easy choice. Duh. Yeah.
And if you do that, you are a jerk. And you should
maybe because they feel like, you know, since it's the thought that counts and there's no thought in like picking the easy choice, they feel like, you know, like there's no thought in the gift, but like, no, like it's not your fault. I made it easy.
Yeah, it's true. It's very clear that I like robot things, and if you send me a robot thing, then I'm obviously gonna like it. It's not lazy. It's just an aspect of us that's really prominent.
So we have an interesting little holiday schedule coming up for the next couple of weeks on the podcast, don't we?
Yeah, we do. The holidays have always been a little tricky when it comes to scheduling, just because we have a lot of different activities and traveling that we have to do for the holidays and visiting family and friends. So we have a couple of special episodes coming up within the next few weeks.
Yeah, so you're not going to be here next week, right? You're going away for the holiday, yes?
Yes, I am. Next week is going to be Christmas celebrations in Florida.
All right. But so I'm going to do something special for next week. I feel like this is a good time to do like almost one of those holiday specials where like, oh boy, who's going to come by next? Look, it's Cyndi Lauper. Oh, and just like also, and the closest, the closest thing to celebrities we have here are our patrons, our Switch Kings, our Switch Cats, our Switch Knights. So I'm thinking of, I want to get together with as many of you, anyone listening, and I'm probably going to reach out to a bunch of you, but any one of you who might want to contribute a little segment with me over the next couple of days between the time this posts and Tuesday of next week, if there's a small segment you want to do with me, either just talking about a favorite game from the year, or maybe just some topic you want to talk about, or just a little review, something like that, definitely message me, and I'll work out something, because I definitely want to get on a handful of our backers on the show for little segments, ones that have always, a lot of you always ask me to be on the show, and this is probably your best chance to come on for just a little segment, a little chance to talk to the community, and about something that's special and meaningful to you. And so definitely let me know, and I'll post something on the Patreon page about that to call out to everybody.
Yeah, right. It's definitely a good idea, and I always love hearing from our Patreon members just because of how really dedicated they are, both to the SwitchCast, but to the Switch and Nintendo in general.
And we only have so many chances to get any of them on the show, and even when it's like a surprise weekend where like, oh, no JV, it's like whoever I can get from there. So here's a little chance to have, a little advance notice. But the week after that, we have something also special planned.
Episode 100!
Wow.
It's actually coming, Casey. It's actually happening.
100 episodes.
It's
been
insane.
2 years almost.
Yeah, I know. I just can't believe how far this whole endeavor has gone. Yeah. I did not expect it to be this big.
Well, I guess it has been about 2 years exactly, because... Yeah, it's been over 2 years because we started this...
Around November.
Around November, right. So yeah, it has been 2 years. So yeah, 200. So episode 100, and we're finally going to do something that we've never had on the show before.
Yeah, I feel like we should leave it as a bit of a surprise.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it as a surprise. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So we're going to have something on that's never been on the show before, and so it should be a pretty fun episode, and we're going to try to do something special. But if there's anything that people want, I think I always mention this, and I know it's hard. People always say, like, oh, you should do a clip show of your favorite moments. I'm like, that's the hardest thing in the world to look through. There's so many episodes, so many hours. I have no idea where to find even, like, my favorite moments, if I could think of one anecdotally. But if you guys know of a favorite moment that you want us to include a clip from, you're more than welcome to find like the timestamp of an episode and just tell me, hey, this was my favorite moment when Casey said something stupid or whatever. And I will happily go and dig up that clip, and I'll include it in the show.
Oof, that's a rough example, because I feel like that's every episode.
That's true, but it's like picking which stupid thing I said. That's the hard part.
Yeah, well, even just that, if you can't think of any specific moment, just let us know either in an email, in a tweet, in a message. Just let us know what you really like about the SwitchCast, what the SwitchCast means to you, and we'll be happy to read that feedback on that special episode.
Yeah, definitely. Also, one of our favorite memories ever is always going to be reading your reviews on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to us from. I like to go through at least once a week and scroll through any new reviews that you guys have left us. So if you haven't yet, please go down to wherever you listen to us and leave us a review. Those reviews help us go up in ratings helps more people find the show. And I know you want to keep us as like this special secret little podcast that only you know about, but we want to be spread to the world. So help us spread to the world by giving us a good review and helping us, find more listeners around the world. We really do want to be the top show of all Nintendo Switch shows. Like, not I want to be the top video game podcast somehow, just by focusing on the Switch with such a great community. So please, every last one of you, leave us a review. It will be so appreciated.
And even beyond being as ambitious as Casey is with our standings, podcast reviews, Apple Podcast reviews, Google Play reviews, those are really a great way to expand our community and bring more people into our Discord chat and our Facebook groups and participating through comments and Twitter. It's just a great way to expand the perspectives that we have, to expand how many people we have to play with, and it really allows us to have a larger pool of friends to run tournaments or events with. So even just taking that perspective, posting a podcast, posting a positive podcast really benefits you all.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's move on to the rest of the show here. We want to catch up on a bunch of reviews for games that we've been playing for the last couple of weeks. So we have those, followed by some news and good stuff before we leave you for the season. All right?
Oh, for sure.
All right. So let's go into that. Game Station. JV and I have been playing some games, and we're going to tell you about them. And should I start first, or do you want to start first?
Go for it.
All right. So, actually, I played a couple of weeks ago. I picked up, I rented, because I had played this game actually on the 3DS. And it's one of those games that, it has a pretty strong cult following, but I am the witch hunter of that cult. I did not like this game.
Oh boy.
But I was like, you know what? Let's see what they did for it on the Switch version, and that is Code of Princess DX.
That's right. I remember this game. I remember we reviewed this game in the past in a different podcast entirely.
We did, yes.
It wasn't the most positive review, and I remember you getting a little bit of flack for it.
Yeah, there's some people who just, like I said, there's some cult following for it. There's just a few, it's not like a wildly popular game, but the people who like it really
love it. Yeah.
They do. And I gotta say, this game does a couple of things that are pretty cool. I just think that the overall package never came off to me as like a decent, like that great a game, and I don't know, it just has a lot of things that get me like hung up. As people will know, one of those things is over fan servicing me. And if you look at the box art right off the bat, the game is probably like signaling right away to anybody, this game is here to titillate and to fan service you with the like 80% naked princess character on the cover art, right?
Oh,
she's
boy.
like, it's like, it's not even like subtle. It's just like, she looks like she's just a naked woman with a sword with like bandages covering up her naughty bits.
I've absolutely hated that trope. I hated all of the tropes where you have a supposedly strong female character, but they're so scantily clad in such an inappropriate and impractical level. It's right. It's not.
And
great.
I'm not a prude. I'm fine with. I'm happy with. I don't even like argue that much about games that. All right, they like to make some characters sexy. That's great. That's fine. If it fits the theme and it feels like it flows into the style of the game, that's fine. But in here, it just feels like, all right, we had a game, and it's all right. How do we make it better? Oh, I know. Let's make the characters, like, not even just her. Like, a lot of the characters feel like they're just, they're all, like, women in bikinis. A lot of them kind of are.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be warriors that are really good fighters, right?
And in some ways, like, so there's a pretty interesting cast of characters, right? So the main character is the princess of, her nation. They guard some sacred sword. They're being attacked by monsters that are rising, and you have to, take the sword to safety before, while your nation's crumbling, and eventually use it to destroy the evil queen or whoever's like, behind the monster invasion. It's like the super tropiest story there is, right? There is, and they even allude to that. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if we acknowledge how tropey the story is, we're just doing it ironically, right? Like, no, you're still doing a tropey story.
Yeah, that happens pretty regularly, and it's almost never a valid excuse.
Yeah. Now there is a colorful cast of characters in this game. You first off, you meet like this thief girl who's, she's pretty cool. She's kind of, she's like the most down to earth of the characters, She has like the typical like, oh, I'm just here for profit, but I get won over by the friendship of you guys, and I guess I'll, be an honest thief for you. You meet this necromancer girl who is like, she's kind of like a zombie goth girl where she's like built out of the parts of other people, and she pretty much just wears a scarf, and she's the one I showed you that animation of where when she's floating and her scarf is up in the air, it just looks like she's just a naked woman with a scarf on. Like, I feel like you could almost see like parts.
Yeah, the more explicit parts.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like they tried to slip that in and maybe nobody noticed and they just didn't care, or I don't know.
And you mentioned it previously, but it is absolutely worth emphasizing. We are not prudes when it comes to this type of stuff. It's just whenever it's as gratuitous and useless to the narrative as this, right. I feel like it's just not. It's there to capture a specific audience.
I just don't like feeling like the game is trying to win me over through that. Like that's what they're like. Oh, great example of something that won me over, right? Xenoblade Chronicles, right?
Right.
When you played it before me, I was wary because I felt that some of the Blade characters, particularly Pyra, were just a little too, I was like, it just feels a little weird that how she's like super busty, and that like there's some characters that just seem a little too over-sexualized. But You know what? It didn't really get in the way of the game. It fit the aesthetic of the game overall. Like, it wasn't like they were just out of place. Like, that's just kind of like how a lot of characters looked in the world, and they all had this. They all fit the style, and it wasn't in the long run. The characters still felt like people and characters, and they developed them in a lot of other ways.
They weren't just objects for titillation.
Right. And so, all right, that game won me over, and I eventually disregarded my qualms with that, and I got over it. This game, that never happened because the characters never developed. So anyway, the actual gameplay in this is it actually plays out like a brawler. It's kind of in the same genre of Guardian Heroes, if anyone's ever played that old game, where it's not like a full like in normal brawlers like a Double Dragon or Final Fight, where you can like move smoothly between the foreground and the background area. In this, there's 3 distinct lanes that your characters can be in, and whenever you're in one lane, you can like hold block and hit up or down, and you'll shift over to another lane that is separate from the others, and you'll fight whatever enemies are there. It has its pros and cons. It's all right. It's different. I kind of dig it. And you have a good variety of attacks. All the combos are sort of like in the Warriors games. Like, it's either attack, or light attack, heavy attack is one combo. 3 light attacks and a heavy attack's a different combo, or a different type of, finisher. I like the Necromancer girl actually, because she had a lot of like different type effects. Like, she could do a poison attack that does some damage over time to enemies. She had one that petrified guys and froze them in place. She had a lot of ranged attacks, but she really kind of suffered in close range, which kind of fit. Whereas, like, the main character, the princess, she had just the big sword. She's really good up close, and actually, there's a lot of characters to choose from. As you play through the game, you pretty much unlock everything you fight as a playable character in certain modes. Like, almost every monster or boss that you fight can be played in different modes as just a character with their own like levels and super attacks that you can do. But there are canonically, I think there's 6 storyline characters you can unlock, and they all fight pretty differently too. And so that's pretty fun. I actually also like this cool nun you meet later on with a mace, and she actually has healing powers, and that actually works with the multiplayer nature of the game. The game has a pretty decent co-op mode where you and a friend and several friends actually can go and take on different missions, trying to beat times or level up your characters, and you can use your powers like the healing from one of them or stat buffs. They all have different stat buffing abilities, and you get a good decent amount of teamwork. And in a lot of these games, it's nice to have someone just to watch your back, because a lot of the times the only way you can really be beaten is if someone gets behind you. As long as you have someone guarding your back, you're usually pretty solid.
Pretty safe?
Yeah, it's not too bad in that regards.
Okay.
The missions themselves in multiplayer, though, tend to go too fast, I feel like. There's not a lot to a single mission in this game. Like, any stage is just a fairly short horizontal traversal. Like, you go left to right, as for a few screens, a boss shows up, and then you're done. There's not a lot of interesting set pieces. There's not a lot of cool, like, oh, here's the part where the rocks start coming down the mountain, or like where we have to start jumping from platform to platform before they fall from underneath us. There's just 3 lanes, maybe a thing you have to blow up that's in your way. Not a lot of actual ingenuity in the stage designs.
Okay.
Enemy designs, not too bad. There's a decent amount of them, but
I feel like the gameplay sounds relatively interesting, and
it would be a little more interesting if the enemies had less hit points. They're very grindy.
Oh, yeah, so it feels like a bit of a slog sometimes?
It is. It's just like, oh, I punch this guy, he gets knocked down. Especially it's the last guy in a wave. You punch him, you knock him down. He gets up, you punch him, you knock him down. And it's just this guy's done. I don't need to have to go through this over and over. And I feel like they make the stages feel longer by simply giving the enemies
a little bit more hit points. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That's it. It would probably even seem more fun. I wouldn't even mind as much if they get more enemies, but less hit points to each of them. That would fool me into feeling like I'm doing more, but just having a small number of enemies with lots of hit points. Maybe as you level up, as you beat stages, your skills go up. You'll beat them faster if you play the old stages over again, but it's, first time through the game is a slog.
So I feel like based on what you're describing, there's not really that much. So is there really any depth to what, any depth to any customization or
a little bit of customization. You do get items, and there's a shop that you unlock eventually, and you can give your character a few different certain buffs or debuffs, like, oh, he's strong against fire, or this character when they do, there's a burst ability you can do where you use your magic points to buff your character for a few seconds. There's ones that when you're in that power state, you can't be stunned, or you can't right. or maybe you do extra damage this way or that way. And there's a few little things like that. Nothing too dramatic.
So it has a couple RPG elements to it, but not really anything that would make it a dedicated RPG brawler.
Nah, nothing that's that interesting. There's no skill trees, right? That would be interesting. You just kind of level up and your stats are better, and you get some minor tweaks from your equipment.
Okay, so it seems a little arbitrary in that sense.
Yeah. What also feels a little arbitrary, though, is some battle, this works in your favor and against you sometimes. Some battles are just determined by who gets stun locked first. It's very, very easy for you to stun lock an opponent and just whip through a battle. You could stun lock a whole set of fighters, maybe 4 guys all stun locked together, and you never let them out of it, and you just take them out. Sometimes, especially if they gang up on both sides of you, you might just get unlucky and you're stun locked to the point where they literally could be the first 10 seconds of the fight, you stepped in the wrong place, and now you're just stun locked to death. And it's well, all right.
How often does that happen? That sounds pretty frustrating.
Not uncommon enough. Honestly, it doesn't happen every fight, but it happens enough that I'm just oh, I roll this again. It'll happen once every couple of stages, I feel like. Later in the game, a little more. Early in the game, it happened. Later in the game, that's pretty much all I felt determined whether I won or lost. Do I get them in the stun lock loop first, or do they get me in a stun lock loop?
Now, overall, how is the story presented, if there even really is one?
It's just like a very cliche anime thing where like, oh, there's the guy in the mask who's like, he's like the only competent enemy, right? And oh, I wonder if he's going to be someone special behind that mask who actually matters to me. And like, oh, whatever, he's somebody. And then there's, I beat the game. And I don't remember if this game has the 2 endings or not, but there is like an alternate ending based on one choice you make at the end. Other than that, there's just after you beat the game, which only takes maybe like 4 or 5 hours if you play through. Yeah, I'd say you could beat it about 5 hours. And then you have to kind of just milk all the other modes, the online, and if you're going to play with friends, I guess. And there's also like versus modes. So I played it mostly on handheld, which looked a lot better than it did on 3DS, sure. It looks still a little weird on TV though. Like it don't think it upscales too well to like my new big TV. And I could see the pixels a lot clearer than I can when I'm looking at it on my just handheld.
Yeah, well, I mean that might be partly because of your fancy new 4K TV.
Maybe.
Yeah, but when it comes to these sprite based games, definitely enlarging pixels can make the graphics seem a bit more jagged and more not as smooth as you'd like. This type of problem actually happened when I was playing the BlazBlue game.
Okay.
On the Switch, on a big 4K TV, you could see a little bit of jagged edges, but with the art style of something like Code of Princess, I actually feel like it might even be more apparent in this style of game. It's,
I'll give it credit. It is a upgraded 3DS game, and for that, it still looks pretty good, especially compared to, the old one, which I really wasn't a fan of its graphics. For that system, that's a matter of taste, though, but I think it looks okay here. The biggest thing I'll say, though, is I just don't feel the combat is very flowy. It's very clunky combat. Combos don't feel natural. They feel like, the timing's always a little off, or the characters don't your attacks don't feel like they connect to one another. They just kind of feel like they come out when they feel like coming out. And it's just not, a very fast pace. It feels like almost like a turn-based roller sometimes. It's like, all right, I'm going to hit attack. Let's see if my attack comes out and connects, It's like,
yeah. So just taking a quick moment, what do you think people who are such big fans of the game like about it? Like what are they latching onto that makes them so dedicated to this game? I
don't know, maybe some people really like the cheesy kind of story and the characters. I'm not just going to write off, as much as I kind of want to, I'm not just going to say they like it because the game is fan servicing them, right? But a voice in the back of my head is kind of saying that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny there's that element to consider when it comes to this type of game.
But to give them the benefit of the doubt, I'll say if you're someone who likes this, maybe you enjoy it for the online, the multiplayer aspect, the fact that there's 50 total characters to unlock and play as, all of which do control differently, right? Even though I don't feel any of them control well, they all control differently and have a different, slight gameplay ability. And maybe they like just speedrunning stages. I think there's a game potentially here. I just feel that it wasn't made polished or smooth. And I think if they just upgraded the action, made it feel faster, reduced the enemy's hit points, and I don't know, took out the really, really cliche storyline, I might have clicked with this a little more.
So I did want to ask, how do you acquire characters?
Oh, you just unlock them by beating stages. When you get to
they just unlock naturally?
Yeah, they just unlock as you're going through the story. When you meet character X in the storyline, she's now unlocked for you to use in anything.
Gotcha, because I was wondering if maybe it has the whole gacha appeal. Gacha games generally don't have that deep of a gameplay, but the fun in that is to collect all the different characters. And even though they only play marginally differently, the difference kind of makes it feel like it's fun to collect all these characters.
I do say some of the characters are fun, though. I also was pretty fond of, there's like this little elfy bard character, like this little, he lies a lot about how like he's actually like 500 years old, but he has like an electric guitar. So he's like,
that's kind of cool.
a metal bard, which is pretty cool. Yeah, he's not too bad. He's like the one piece of comedy I can kind of like stomach in here. He's not too bad. He's cheesy, but I dug it.
So overall, what do you think about the value of this game? It cost $40.
I don't know.
Was it worth it?
No, I mean, like, I just think, here's the thing. There's so many better options right now on the Switch in this genre. You could probably pick up what's that compilation of brawling games?
Capcom Beat 'em Up?
Yeah. You can pick up that Capcom Beat 'em Up thing right now.
The Beat 'em Up bundle.
And yeah, that whole bundle, and I think you'll get a lot of play, and those games feel more fast-paced, action-y, cool characters. Maybe not as much of an anime story. But you know what, though? Once that Dragon, Mark of the Dragon comes out, I think that's going to be like the brawler of that, like, we're going to be hooked on next. I just think there's a lot of good ones that are out and already on their way out for the Switch that this really doesn't have a strong position on the system.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that was the direction this review was going. So yeah, let's confirm that.
All right, well, why don't you brighten me up a little bit with something shiny, new, and happy?
Katamari Damacy.
Oh, so this is also another remake for the Switch, yes?
Yeah, maybe we're doing a whole bunch of remakes today. So I've been playing Katamari Damacy Reroll, which is it's not even a remake. I guess it's more of a remaster of the very first Katamari Damacy game that came to the US. Called Katamari Damacy.
Nice.
So, this game, if you haven't heard of it before, it's a very difficult game to describe.
It kind of is, yeah.
It really is. Katamari is a third-person platforming puzzle style game that lives and dies by how quirky it is.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since there's not really that much out there to compare it to. So
I mean, it is the only game of its genre, I think you could say, honestly.
Anyway, the concept of the game is incredibly quirky. So essentially, there is this gigantic universal entity called the King of all Cosmos, and he is a very quirky but temperamental, gigantic being. And just one afternoon, he got drunk, or it was kind of implied that he got drunk, and he went out and destroyed everything. He destroyed all the stars in the sky, he destroyed the moon, he destroyed lots of entities throughout the galaxy, and waking up in kind of a hangover, he's entrusting you, this tiny little dude,
the prince,
I think the prince, to gather up materials from around the world to create katamaris, which are essentially stars that are going to fill the sky and replace all of the wreckage that the King of all Cosmos created.
Yeah, it's so weird. So it's like he kind of like takes like, there's enough mass for this to condense into a star.
Right, so the actual gameplay of the game is essentially, think Monkey Ball, but instead of just pushing a marble through a maze stage, you're pushing a Katamari through, I guess, like
just
a room,
environments.
Or an environment. And your ultimate objective is to collect as much things on your Katamari to expand its size and eventually get to a size big enough to reach the goal and create a new star for the galaxy.
Yeah, because like anything that's like smaller than your Katamari will stick to it, and even after the entire ball is like covered, like the things that have stuck to it also become sticky, apparently, so that, you know, as you grow in size, as long as the thing is like, you know, a certain percentage smaller than what you have amassed,
you can stick to it.
Yeah.
It can stick to you. And
so
now
and you have a time limit, right? That's the main thing.
Right,
like you have to find out how to get as big as fast as possible before the time runs out.
Yeah, and you generally start off quite small. Some of the early stages you start off the size of
like a quarter.
Yeah, size of a quarter, or maybe the size of a ping pong ball. And from there, you start collecting small things like erasers or little pieces of dirt on the floor, or, you know, small pieces of candy. And once you get to a certain threshold, your Katamari expands, and that allows you to get even bigger things like pencils and pens and, you know, paperweights, and from there you can start getting even bigger to collect shoes, maybe a stool, and then even bigger until at some point, sometimes, some stages, you can start catching people and start catching buildings and start catching trees, start catching towers, skyscrapers. And this game escalates like crazy at times, and that's really part of the fun.
It's just ridiculous fun because they're always so happy. Like, no, it's never like, despite the fact that you're like sucking up cities and people, they're never like terrified. They're all like, woo!
Well, some of them are terrified, but in a hilariously terrified way.
Right.
Like, they're like, oh my gosh, and they're shaking. And the whole aesthetic of this game is very cartoony. There's a lot of pastel colors everywhere. All of the graphics and all of the art assets are polygonal. Polygonal.
Thank you.
Which is really, which really adds a comedic feel to the game. If you think about it, having a gigantic, essentially boulder absorbing maybe human beings, dogs, sheep, whole elementary schools to their death, essentially, sounds kind of morbid, but overall it's played off in a very comedic and funny fashion, and if you just don't think about it too hard, this game is a hoot.
It's almost like absurdly optimistic. Like, it's just like all rainbows and like love and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's very 60s kind of feel to it.
Yeah, and a lot of the graphics and the transitions and
Royal Rainbow.
It's rainbows. It's almost psychedelic in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's very quirky in Japanese. And I remember when this came out on the PS2 a long time ago, there was nothing like it.
Yeah.
This, especially in the with the American library, we really haven't gotten anything this weird before, and that really captured a lot of people's hearts.
I'm really surprised. I have to say, I'm really surprised that there were never copycat games of this, because it felt like the kind of game that would have set up a whole genre of like boulder rollers, like those kind of games.
I know what you mean. And there were a couple sequels for this game on the PS2 and even on the PS3. And after a certain point, I feel like people burnt out on this style of game because they haven't really released a new one until the remake, until this remake. Which
they had a few mobile phone ones here and there, but
they were never quite that good. Really, this game lives and dies on the settings, the environments, and the music. Now, I have to say the soundtrack of Katamari Damacy is some of the catchiest I've had in a while. I played this game a long time ago on the PS2, and I remember each stage having its own designated soundtrack song.
Yeah.
And each time the soundtrack plays during the stage, I kind of started, like tapping my foot and getting into the music, and it was really one of the first times I got into Japanese music or game OSTs outside of anime.
It's true. It is very and they sing, a lot of the songs do have like either mostly Japanese lyrics in them, but and because you restart stages a lot, at least when I first was playing it, but it didn't feel so bad because it's like, all right, restart, but then the song starts and it's just like they don't tire easily. Like, you still enjoy that song the like 8th time it starts over, and it helps you get through some of the harder stages.
Yeah, and it's such a quirky game. Even the game over screens are hilarious. In this one, the game over screen is essentially the king of all cosmos having a sad diatribe about how we've failed society, and then it's like raining and it's setting an over dramatic scene, but it's all done with humor, and I found this whole game to be hilarious.
Now, I remember they also do this thing though, like whenever you lose, right? It still progresses because like what you're doing throughout the game is you're reconstructing the sky, right?
Yeah.
And when you succeed, you replace a major star, but when you lose, he blows the Katamari up into stardust. And even that dust fills the sky a little bit, so that even your losses kind of contribute to the reconstruction.
It feels really nice, and the base gameplay of this game is fun, and even though this is a remake, it's just Katamari hasn't really been in people's minds that recently, so reliving this quirky game is such a nostalgia trip. And even if you haven't played this game before, it's definitely worth revisiting. I really believe it's a piece of gaming history that really made it acceptable for quirky, kooky games to come out in America.
I have to ask though, so one of the main things though about the game is the control scheme. And I remember with the PS2 controller, it kind of felt like a perfect vehicle for it. You had the 2 joysticks and they were like, totally side by side. And, it was like, it was almost like tank controls, I guess you could say, where like if you either hit them both to the left, right, up, down to roll it. But if you wanted to turn it, you would either like tilt one up and one down, and you could jiggle them back and forth if you wanted to dash. How do the controls work on the Switch with its uneven joysticks?
They have the same setup, but you can also do simple controls where the left stick moves your Katamari and the right stick turns you. So
okay.
It has pretty standard controls in that sense. They also included motion controls for the Switch, which I thought was pretty neat, but I didn't really like playing it that much.
Oh, we just like tilt the Switch or tilt your controller to roll?
It's tilt based, and it's fine. I played mostly in handheld mode, and obviously tilt controls aren't that convenient in that sense. In that mode, so it's not something that I really enjoyed or really stuck to. Now, I do have to say, the game is very short. It was short back then. It's short now. They didn't really add much to it.
Okay, so there's no new like modes or anything like that?
There's nothing new. It is a recreation, essentially a full-fledged remake of the original game. And while the graphics really hold up just because of how polygonal everything is, that this cel shady, pastel, simple art style really holds up over time. The gameplay, or not the gameplay, the game length is definitely something to be desired. And this is a $30 game.
Oh, that's not too bad, because it used to be $20 originally, right? It was when I bought the first one on PS2, it was $20.
I don't remember.
I remember that being like I'm being blown away by that. That was something I remember of the first game.
Actually, I want to look that up. Yeah, okay. It was $20. Yeah. So it's $30, so it's more expensive than it used to be. But it's hard to justify it since I beat this game in 5-6 hours.
I remember I milked it for a lot of extra gameplay because in addition to getting all the stars back, you can go for the shooting stars if you try to beat like the target times on each stage. And if you can beat those times or the sizes, you can you can
definitely extend the value of this game if you like to essentially do score chases or time attacks. There is a 2-player competitive multiplayer mode in this.
Okay, yeah.
And that's pretty cool as well.
I did find it to have decent replay when I played it back then, but I don't know if that's probably not for everybody that you would want to still play it.
It's definitely, you definitely have to be into the game in order to want to replay it. So if you're not super into score chases or getting the better, the shooting stars, then this game is going to be a quick play. It might be something to consider for sure.
What about someone who has no idea about this series before, and this is their first experience with it? Do you think they would still be into it, or you think this would click with them?
I would recommend. This is one of those games that I would actually recommend pulling up a bit of a video or looking at screenshots. See if this style or this aesthetic fits what you want, and if this aesthetic bothers you, or if this is just not your style of game, then put it away. But if you're willing to have a quirky time, play a game that really doesn't have an equal, I feel like you would be able to get your money's worth out of this.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, so overall, I think Katamari Damacy holds up. It's fun. The $30 price tag is the only thing that I really hesitate towards.
Oh, so you actually feel like it should be back down like $20?
For me, the base gameplay of this is so unique, and there's nothing like it. I feel like the price tag, if it was $25, I would get it in a heartbeat. $30 is pushing it a little bit.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so also keeping kind of along the lines of these like remakes, I played something that feels like almost like a retake or a second chance at making a game good, and it's another game that I played the previous version of and wasn't fond of, but I gave this one a try because I had a lot of criticisms of the first game, and I wanted to see if they improved upon it. And this is Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek, the sequel to Hello Neighbor.
Right. So this isn't necessarily a remake. It's an entirely new game altogether.
It is, but it kind of feels like they really did try in a lot of ways to make an improved game in ways that I feel like if they did some of these ideas in the previous ones, it might have been more favorably looked upon.
Yeah, right. Because I know Hello Neighbor had a couple fans, but it was kind of panned once the full game came out. Well,
it was super buggy first off, right? I mean, that right off the bat, like the physics was weird. It didn't work. The platform, like so it was like a first person exploration game with like, you know, this stalker character chasing you around, which got in the way of your exploration and made it very hard to figure out the very contrived puzzles you had to solve. And it was just frustrating in a lot of ways. This definitely takes a imaginative new look at the gameplay, and try some things that I definitely appreciated. So this is actually sort of a prequel story where you play as part of the neighbor's family, actually. So this takes place before those events where, a little bit of spoiler, is, you know, part of Hello Neighbor is discovering that the crazy guy who's chasing you down and kidnaps you actually kind of has a bit of a tragic past, and there's kind of a relatable reason almost why he's such a, you know, mean guy, and you almost feel bad for him as you like learn more about his story. This is the story before that where he's happy at home with a family, you know, he has kids, and you actually play one of his two kids who are playing hide and seek in the house. And but this actually plays out a little bit more imaginatively, because you're not just like playing around in just the house. When you get into the mind of the kids as they're playing these games, the whole world changes appearance. And the first
level, because of their imagination.
Right. So even like the first level, right? Like you start off with a little bit of a tutorial where it's like, you know, you run and you find your brother like hiding in a closet or whatever, and then you run and hide from him. And when you go through a door, as soon as you go through the door, the other side of it, instead of being like the bedroom, it's now like this big open like wilderness, right? With like mountains, and the toys have all become like animals that are, you know, poking their heads around, and it's this really cool look of, it's wilderness, but there's still elements of the house in there. Like there's like a giant window in the side, or like there's your nightstand in the middle of like this mountainous region, and there's bushes to hide and stuff. And so you're kind of playing the hide and seek game there,
which is part of the game, the name of the game.
Right. But there's nothing telling you what else you have to do, right? There's no like, here's the goal of this map. There's just, here's the map, and you eventually run into your brother who's like, you know, dressed as a tiger, because you're playing this, you know, cat and mouse game. So he's dressed as this tiger. So when he sees you, he chases you. When he tags you, you start over. So you just kind of wander around at first, exploring this place, which is kind of cool. And there's some decent places to go and climbing and looking around. But again, you don't know what you're supposed to do. There's no like explanation that there's some way through this stage, or something, some goal you're trying to achieve, or puzzle you're trying to solve.
Eventually, it's pretty open-ended, it seems.
Kind of, but at the same time, it's like, well, what do you do? The game does allow you to unlock clues after you've been playing it for a while and you don't do anything. It does say like, would you like us to, you know, give you clues now? And if you're a little impatient, or if you kind of want to at least have a structure to what you're doing, you can turn them on, and they put on these big arrows telling you about items you have to grab. And at least in the first stage, it's about finding various items, and then you have to throw them in some basket to like beat that stage. And you're finding like your different toys or whatever like that. Not sure why. There's no like story reason to think that's what you have to do, but okay, whatever. I go with it. I almost feel like, again, though, this exploration, these cool locations you visit, would be better off without your brother chasing you again.
Oh, really?
Because it's just like everything you want to do, he sees you and then he chases you. And he's so fast. He's the same speed as you pretty much. So it's not like you can just lose him. You can't, like, once he's spotted you, you might as well just be like, whatever. He's got me. You know, it's just like, there's no point in running forever just for him to maybe eventually wander out of eyesight so I can get back to doing what I want to do. It's really hard to focus on a puzzle. If I want to look at like, oh, here's a thing I have to climb. Let me take a step back and look at it so I can see how to climb it. Oh, now he saw me. And it's not like there's a lot of places, like there's some places to hide, like there's tall grass, there's little things like, you know, bushes to hide behind, but you really don't get that ability to explore and really take in the world while you're spending half your time and just waiting minutes for him to like wander off somewhere so you could like experiment with something. And there's a lot of stuff to experiment with.
Based on what you're describing, I wonder if they did that on purpose just because of there might not be that much to explore. So if you can just have free reign to explore everything, then you'd finish the game super quickly. Is that possible?
I mean, it's possible that's what they thought would be a good idea. I that's fine, yeah, but I think they're wrong. I think that it's hard enough to figure out what to do. I don't think I would figure out what to do quickly or easily. It almost artificially extends this experience. I remember when I played the last game, I hit a glitch where the neighbor got stuck behind the bed and he couldn't bother me. And it was my favorite hour of gameplay. I could just tinker and look at stuff and figure out the puzzles. And I didn't have this guy constantly just seeing me and resetting me all the time. So, and just interrupting the gameplay where I'd have to hide from all the time. It's the same thing here. I kind of don't wish he wasn't there all the time. Or if he was there, if he is going to be there, make him slower.
Show up as often.
Make him stupid. Make him stupid. Make it really easy to like distract him with something, or like, you know, I can throw a, you know, mud pie in his face and, you know, he goes away for a while. I don't know, something that would just buy me more time, because you spend so much time just hiding and hoping he walks away. There are some other cool things though, like so that was just the first stage. But every stage as this goes on, there's a totally different imaginative environment and theme to it. Like later on, you eventually go to one where it's a cityscape and you're playing basically cops and robbers, and you have to steal a bunch of these. This makes a little more sense. You have to like steal a bunch of like objects and like money bags and bring them back. And the brother plays the part of this cop figure, and he actually has like a little whistle and everything, which is kind of cool because you could hear him at least in advance rather than just having to rely on the screen cues that he's coming. So, you know, it's a cool ideas they incorporated into this. It's just so frustrating that the one feature that they seem to be so tied to, and the thing that kind of makes this game, you know, like a Hello Neighbor game, I feel is the biggest thorn in its side. It's the thing that really makes it, weakens it. That said, I do think if you're really patient, if you're the kind of person who's willing to just take this and say like, you know what, I'm okay with really slowly, methodically exploring this space and
bit by bit, and then having to worry about this tiger kid.
You know,
that's part of it.
You know, it could, you know, I totally could be a little biased in my gameplay because, you know what, I'm very tight for time on games. I want to play a lot of games. I have a lot of things I want to beat. I kind of wanted to experience more of this game in a shorter amount of time, but it simply defies that style of gameplay. So for me, it's not great because I want to play it quickly, and it just doesn't want you to do that. It wants you to play it at its pace, and you have to explore constantly from the shadows and worrying about your brother finding you. Which is, I guess, is going to be fine. Honestly, I'm a little more forgiving about this game than I am Hello Neighbor. It's still a big step forward. I'm also still not crazy about the fact that there's so much physics platforming involved and stuff. The gameplay is not really tight enough to be forcing me to do so many jumps and precise, you know, movements at some points, and it's like, don't make me do these things. Like you're not that's not what you do well.
Now, what I do have to ask though is, it sounds like the game seems a lot lighter. Like one of the most intriguing aspects of Hello Neighbor to me was, you know, the darkness and the mystery and the hidden horror elements to it. How is that in this game?
Well, see, it definitely leans more towards it's building up towards the tragedy that turns the neighbor into the bad guy he is in the other game. So there is that darkness to it, but it almost feels, at least early on especially, it's a little more welcoming because it has this good innocent start to it, and it's just these kids having fun playing this make-believe game of hide and seek. I almost felt like I didn't like how the game actually still uses the same scary sound effects when the brother's about to catch you, because it's not like, it shouldn't be scary. It should just be like, oh, hey, my brother caught me in a game of hide and seek. They should have some other sound effect. They almost feel like the scary sound effects they use are out of place.
Doesn't really apply.
Yeah, it kind of spoils the moment, I feel like, for me. I don't want to be that scared of him.
I can see that.
But, it definitely at least approaches you with a lighter tone, which I just felt made it a little more approachable, actually. The neighbor and the whole darkness and the scariness of in the first game actually slightly maybe frustrated me in that game, because I just was like, I don't know. He was just too in your face. And too, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to hit him with a shovel half the time. At least with the brother, I kind of like him, and they kind of develop him a little bit personality-wise through the cutscenes early on, so I kind of know what kind of character he is, and he's somewhat likable, so, I like knowing who my rival is in the story.
Okay. Now, it sounds like this is pretty much Hello Neighbor Part 2.
It is.
It really seems like they didn't change much at all.
They didn't change much in the style of gameplay. I just think that it has a more interesting locations. Interesting locations. The puzzles are a little more innovative, though they're still just as obtuse as before. But the locations are just, also the fact that they're bigger and wider, I feel less bored than I was when I was like, it was just the house, right? Like a lot, like the first main area is just the house in the first game, and you go over the same rooms over and over again, and it's just like, you get claustrophobic, you get tired of seeing the same stuff. New environments, colorful places just breathe a lot of life into the game.
A lot more whimsy, it seems.
A little more whimsy. Some they do get a little darker. Like later on, there's one that's like a city on fire, and you're playing like firemen basically, but it kind of is tied into the storyline also, and has like a tie to like the tragedy in the story. So it's still plot relevant, and it still gives you something cool and different to look at. And I actually do like the art style of this game. I like the art style of both games, but this just does more with it and makes it more just more palatable, I think. Again,
now
don't let my positive comments make you think I still like this game. I did not like this game. I did not like playing it, but I'm more willing to recommend it for someone who thinks they have the patience to get through it.
Right. So essentially, you're not necessarily recommending this game to anyone who wasn't a fan of Hello Neighbor, the original. I just want to acknowledge, I feel like they at least made some steps forward. Yeah, they made improvements. They didn't make enough, but I do tip my hat to them for doing something interesting rather than just making a very copy pasted kind of sequel. Like the Five Nights at Freddy's series did. Like I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's, that's a copy paste.
Yeah, that is copy paste, same gameplay with like very nominal twists. This was more creative. Okay. Well,
that's a positive element, though ultimately your review seems a little more negative. So, do you think it's worth the $30 price tag?
No, I mean, the price tag, I can't recommend this at any price. I do not enjoy my time in this game. But again, I can totally see why someone might like it if they're willing to very slowly go through the various stages of it.
Gotcha.
All right, shall we move on and start talking about the news rundown?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines.
Alright, so we've just gotten the newest event for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Looks like we're getting Fire Emblem.
That's right. So this is really hot on the heels. So that glasses themed one came and went already, I guess. Yeah, so we got our glasses guys, but they're not wasting any time. Starting the next one is, all Fire Emblem based characters. So if there's anyone you wanted to unlock in there, they'll be showing up more often in the spirits thing, which is, kind of cool. Always good to have something to make you log into a game or check out that mode if you never really touch it. Have you seen the Isabelle glitch videos that were out this week?
Oh yeah, the ones where you can just spam assist trophies.
Yes, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw a video of Rathalos popping up like crazy, and it looked like a gigantic swarm of bees, but instead of bees, it's a gigantic dragon.
Right, and they just keep coming until the game crashes. It's just always crazy to see how many the system can handle before the Switch just crashes and starts over.
Yeah.
Though we also might have a leak for a new Smash character.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily want to say the character's name on the podcast because some people might not like leaks. I actually absolutely abhor leaks in general, just because of how bad it is for the industry in general. But if you wanna find out a potential new character in the DLC lineup, go online, check out that there is a leak out there.
I respect your stance on this, JV, and I will not spoil anything then. Yes, I'll let people know if they want to find out it's there, but yeah, you're right. There's probably a lot of people who just want to be surprised when the reveal is official and when Nintendo wants it to be revealed, so why ruin the fun for anybody? All right. I'm game.
And I definitely, I know firsthand as like a part of the development and tech industry, leaks are such a pain to deal with and to handle. So it's not even just a thing where it's a fun aspect for all the fans that they can that is harmless. It does impede a lot of people's jobs, and some people could get fired for this type of stuff. So
okay,
I'm not a big fan.
I respect that.
Now, on a lighter note, Inky Pen.
Yes, I'm tempted to try this out. Actually, I might want to look at what they have available because I mentioned I've been using a Kindle Fire recently this week because I can download my ebooks that I have to study on there.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know already, Inky Pen is essentially a comics library for your Nintendo Switch. All you have to do is pay $8 a month for unlimited access to all of Inky Pen's comics, and you can store it on your Switch and read it whenever you can.
Yeah. It's pretty cool because, like I said, so I've been borrowing my wife's Kindle Fire recently.
Yeah. That's a great way to read manga, to be honest.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about. I wanted to try with it because I downloaded all my ebooks I have to read for school on there.
Right.
And I've been using it, to read on the train and stuff. But yeah, I wanted to kind of consider putting some, manga and stuff on there. But it's kind of a pain to save, image after image, just download a whole bunch of things and then transfer them there. There's probably some quicker ways, but I would not mind, depending on what they have access to, just having this service and then saying, hey, this is what I want to read. I want to see how it works. Like if I could just download, 9 or 10 different comics to read and just have those on the train.
Yeah.
So
honestly,
I'm curious.
For me, when it comes to this type of stuff, I would really want a digital comic subscription. I don't want to have to go hunting for the comics that I'm interested in. I want it to just be able to access them through a single subscription fee and have it just easily downloadable onto whatever medium I'm using. And this looks like it's solving that problem.
Yep, definitely worth looking into. Whether I'll give it an actual subscription for a month or not, we'll see. Again, it'll depend on if they have any comics that pique my interest. If it's all new stuff, or if they have maybe even some old stuff that's worth going back to. I'm curious.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to mention actually Phantasy Star hitting the Sega Ages lineup on Switch.
Classic.
Yeah, classic. Now, I only mention it because a lot of people know RPGs from the Nintendo side, ones like the Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior series, Final Fantasies, and they all have a very specific kind of flavor and style to them. I just mentioned Phantasy Star because it's very different, and even though it's from the same time period and it's the same genre of game, I remember playing this one and just feeling like it's really as if a whole other set of people wanted to invent the RPG and they made their own different conclusions about how things could happen, and it's got its own cool little fantasy / sci-fi setting. with like intergalactic kind of problems going on, but there's
such
still swords.
It's such a strange fusion of fantasy and sci-fi. Like, it has the classic, magical swords and knights and barbarians and wizards aesthetic, but it also includes robots and spaceships and intergalactic travel. It's
it's really cool. And the combat is actually pretty interesting and weird. Like, it really is jarring how different it is. It's also really hard, like frustratingly early on, but once you get going and you learn its own logic, it is a fun, interesting game all its own. But it's one of the ones that I feel like is worth playing for somebody who might consider themselves like a JRPG fan, but never tried this series that is just such a different spin on the whole thing. So I just wanted to call it out because it's been so important to me in the past.
Yeah, it's definitely worth bringing up.
Yeah. All right, so down the pipe, which is games that I also think are worth bringing up, but aren't necessarily out yet or just got a date. Lightseekers, apparently we have another option coming in the future for a trading card game on Switch.
Yeah, so Lightseekers is a trading card game that was getting a big push over the past year. They've had a lot of presence in every single PAX I've been to, at Gen Con and at Origins, and now it looks like they're releasing a Nintendo Switch version of their card game around mid-January.
Yeah, it kind of has that... It almost feels like Hearthstone, but maybe like League of Legends kind of art style to it.
Honestly, it looks like Hearthstone plus Skylanders.
Yeah, Skylanders, yeah.
Yeah. And this was the type of game that wanted to fuse the card game with the mobile app, with toys to life modes, and they're really trying to do a lot with it. So you can buy the physical cards for this as well, and then they can scan into the game, or you could just buy totally digital cards as well. Yeah, and I always loved that aspect of card games. I really wish that more card games out there would incorporate physical and digital versions together. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely something I'm going to check out. I actually have a couple cards for this game physically, because it had a pretty burgeoning scene here in Austin when it first came out, and while I didn't really pay much attention to it beyond launch, if now that it's coming to the Switch, I might want to give it a second pass. I mean, I'll have to give this a try. I mean, I have to. I'm on the fence about the art style. I mean, it's nice. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. It's a little cartoony, and it's very, very kiddie, and like kiddie to the point where it's kind of hampering my enjoyment for it, but it's always worth checking out to me. I'm not totally like against it. It's it is definitely like a little Saturday morning cartoonish, but the designs of the characters are still kind of cool looking so far that I've seen. So I'm not against it yet. We'll see. If the gameplay is strong enough, I might still play it, or I might wait for another. Well, not that I think I'll get too many other options, but I have to give it a try. Totally. I feel like it's definitely worth trying on the Switch, and I can't guarantee that I'm going to be fully into it, but Lightseekers has a very big presence in San Antonio. So they have a really big push to promote this game around Central Texas. So gotcha. It's a pretty local game, which is interesting to see come to the Switch. All right. One or two other cool little games I saw. Degrees of Separation is a cool co-op puzzle game where one character is kind of like from this frozen world, the other character's from this like deserty heat world, and wherever they stand on the screen, they kind of bring their environment with them. So you and your partner have to kind of like maneuver around each other to cause your varying temperatures to affect the stages. I love this idea of a lot of these games are doing this co-op puzzle kind of gameplay where it's not just figuring things out, it's figuring out how to coordinate the solution with your partner, which is always fun. And finally, the Princess Guide, which is I like this concept. So it looks like it plays similar to Penny Punching Princess, which is also a NIS game, so it's in that realm. But it's not, from what I gather from looking at this gameplay, it's not 100% direct action based. You play a knight who
trains one of these 4 princesses in how to like lead their armies into battle, and you give them strategies, but I don't think you directly control them. You kind of give them orders. You have to decide when to punish or reward their actions. Like, you're really playing more of a warrior trainer, and you're just
like a management sim
almost kind of, yeah, but you're still seeing them go through there. I don't know if you control like the princess herself, and maybe you have to like encourage her soldiers to do different things, but it seems to focus on that gameplay of leading the troops into battle, and it almost looks like the battles are kind of like a top-down Dynasty Warriors sort of thing, where like they have to get through the dungeon and have to beat the enemy army, but they have to beat certain obstacles along the way. So I'm kind of interested to see more videos on how this actually plays, and how much it is a management and how much of it is just an action smash 'em up.
What I do have to say is, I'm looking at a video of the of people talking and the dialogue in the game. It's kind of disturbing how bouncy the characters are. Like it's kind of off-putting.
I didn't see too much of the, because a lot of these games don't actually incorporate a lot of those, like the full character art in the actual gameplay. Like, it's just like, that's just like the box art, and usually you just kind of see their faces in the actual gameplay. So I'm wondering if that's just a thing in the trailers, or if that's going to be the actual gameplay.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think it's worth you seeing so you could understand what I mean by bouncy, Casey.
No, I was looking at the trailers. Oh, were you looking at the second trailer or the first one?
Yeah, the second video.
Oh, okay. Let me tell that. Oh, that one there. Let's see. I don't see any bounce. They're all very breathy. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, she's jumping up and down.
Shows all the characters.
Oh, you're okay. See, I thought you were just making a euphemism for, like, they had jiggle physics. That's the way I'll put it.
Well, they do have jiggle physics. Like, if you look at the third and fourth characters, their breasts are animated.
It's not as much as, like, Dead or Alive.
They do
seem very oddly jumpy, though. Like, they do, like they're getting off of a speed trip. Wow, that is weird.
Like, do you see the third and fourth characters?
Yeah, I'm looking, and it's just like, it's almost like they have, like, OCD or something, but...
Yeah, like they're... I don't know what... Is that, like, sped up for the trailer?
No, I think that might just be how they animated them. Weird. Well,
yeah, because the character on the side is just, animated fairly normally. That's
I don't know.
Weird.
Seems like a weird thing. It's Nice.
Yeah, Nice is weird.
Look. I'm not turned off yet, as much as that does seem weird.
I feel like it might just be a little quirky behavior thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might get weird if they have, like, more bustier characters. But,
we'll see.
These are younger princess girls. I don't think that's the, booty physics are going to be that big of a problem for them. Right. Anyway, for new releases, we are getting Cake Laboratory, Cronus Arc, Bring Them Home, Kingmaker, Rise to the Throne, Revertia, ACA Neo Geo Puzzle Bobble, Worldwide Adventure Collection, Viviette, Leopoldo, Monquiseo, The Keep, Nightshade, Horizon Shift 81, Battle Princess Madeline, Fungi Puzzle, Fungi Explosion, and Guess the Character. On December 21, we are getting Dynamite Fishing World Games, Arcade Archives, Donkey Kong Jr., and Sundered Eldritch Edition. On December 23rd, we are getting Mech Rage, which I'm intrigued by. For obvious reasons. And on the 24th, we are getting Omega Strike, Black Sea Odyssey, Pipe Push Paradise, Super Treasure Arena, Digger Man, and Arrow Complete Edition. And on the 25th, we are getting Odium to the Core, Abyss, and Uncanny Valley.
Right. All right. So, sorry we didn't actually get to go into a Switch focus about, and read your responses to our question about what your holiday plans are, but they were still fun to read, and we'll probably respond to them all on the various social networks. And
it's
Patreon.
Something that you can probably cover during your special Christmas episode.
That's true. Maybe I'll bring it up in the next episode. That's true. Yeah. It'll fit for that episode as well. So, yeah. Good thinking there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I hope you all had fun in listening to us, and until next time, everybody.
Switch it up!
Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also, check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also, join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter @theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games.
Sorry, hold on a sec. I think the cat's scratching. Nope, we're good.
Meow.
Sweet. Was that the cat? Nice.